Crafting the Cosmos is a competitive game for 2 to 4 players in which we are gods, I guess, because in any case we have the power to mix and combine elements to create galaxies, no less. So the game is divided into a central area, which I'm going to show you now, and the plastic insert of the box is very important here. You take it out of the box to play the game, because it will allow you to store the components, as you see here. There you go. You store the components, and you have these very cool components here representing the elements, such as carbonium, helium, and on the other side they become supernovas and Earth as well. We'll see what that means. You have 4 deck of ability cards, and here you have a central wheel that represents the main element of the game. You will have a number of marbles depending on the number of players, plus marbles representing dark matter. You place them there randomly at the beginning of the game, starting from here. So going around until they're all placed, and basically here I've set it up for 2 players. The main idea is that when it is your turn, you need to move your own marble by at least 1 spot, say like that. But you have a total of 3 movements, so I could do 1, 2, 3, for example. And if this is the turn for pink, pink could do 1, 2, and 3. The important thing is that you cannot move other people's marbles, only your own in dark matter. After you're done with that, actually suppose that we ended up there. After you're done with that, you activate the wheel there to collect resources. Now, the area where your active personal marble is will indicate the main action that you take, which is on the left. Here, for example, I would collect carbonium. There you go, carbon, I don't know. I collect this token here. And then I also collect a token representing a galaxy. I choose from 1 of 3 stacks, and they are labeled as 1, level 2, level 3. The higher the level, the more difficult it is to complete. And then you flip it to the other side and it will tell you the requirements that you need to have around it to complete it, the number of victory points. Another requirement here, you need to spend 1 of these element tokens. So that's for that action, there. And after you do that, after you activate your main action, you will collect passive rewards for all the marbles you have around that there are around the board, but this time you look at the right side. So here, for example, I would collect 2 of these life tokens that I can place on my board, and you'll see what that means. Here, I will collect in the right side here, I will collect cards that can be used to buy abilities and to trigger abilities. Here, for example, I would collect 1 of these cards here, say I want this one, because there is a marble there. If the situation was such, I will be collecting 2, and then we replenish that. Like so. There, I will collect time tokens. As my passive ability, I collect time tokens, which are used to score points. Well, I don't exactly collect them. On my board, there is a tracker, and so for each time token reward that I get there, I advance it there. I had 2 marbles there, I will advance it by 2. When it gets to 6, it slides there, it will score me victory points, and also then I collect a new one from here. So yeah, this advantage gives you advances on that track, not necessarily tokens. There's only a limited number of such tokens. When they run out, that's one of the 2 things that triggers the end of the game. Here, the passive reward is that I can move things from around my board. I already told you about that. The passive reward, which is to get the life tokens. As for the active rewards, you collect an element or a galaxy. You collect 3 hydrogen tokens. You collect 2 oxygen tokens, and you flip your life from basic to advanced. This is the basic side, this is the advanced. When you collect them, you place them on the basic side. When you use that action or similar actions, you flip it to this side. You will see what the differences are. Here, the main thing, I collect 2 helium tokens and I get a supernova, which is when you turn any one of these elements to its other side, and that now it counts as a wild. So, start your turn by moving marbles and then collecting resources. And then you get to spend them on your personal board, which I already showed you briefly. Personal board looks like this. You start with 3 galaxies that need to be completed. So level 1, level 2, level 3. And you start with a helium token placed there, like that. And then you do stuff. As you are collecting resources, you can use those trackers there to keep track of how many of these things you have. As we said, you can collect life, and you always gets on the board from the purple, with the purple side up, and you start from your starting life, and you just have to develop by moving adjacent. I mean, by adding life adjacent to previous life tokens that you have. As you saw, you also collect elements such as this one, and you can place those absolutely anywhere you want. The purpose to complete a galaxy is to have around one of these templates all the correct elements. And so, for example, to fulfill this galaxy, I could use this element here. And then I'll place one here. And one here, maybe. There you go. And now I have all that I need to complete that one. And also, that's a reminder there, that symbol, that when you do so, you need to eliminate one of your tokens. And that would be the case. I eliminate that one, I have the required elements, I eliminate one, and I flip this one on the other side to indicate I completed it. Also, I scored that many points, which is nice. Ultimately, that's why we do what we do. We want those points. Other actions that you've seen from the board. It is, again, turning a star into a supernova, like so, done. Flipping life from its basic side to its advanced side, which is the green one. I can also take, during my turn, the action of adding life to a completed galaxy. Then I'll simply draw one of these tokens from a pile and I place it there. However, when I do so, all of the basic life is removed and only the advanced life stays, which is why if you have your advanced life there, it's just a little more reliable. And that's what that will look like. I can acquire cards, special cards. You see this area of your board here. It indicates that you can acquire special cards by burning these resources here. The first that you'll buy will cost you 2 matching cards like these. This one will take 3, and then 3, and then 4. I suppose I decide to take that action. I discard these 2 cards, which are for light. And then I go on the main board and I collect one of these tiny cards here, the corresponding one, light for light. I place it there, and now that gives me an ability. Actually, since I spent 2 cards, I draw 2 and I choose 1. When I spend 3 cards, I will draw 3 of the corresponding type and choose 1. And that will give me an ability for the rest of the game, which often needs to be fueled by discarding specific cards to give me that ability. Here I discard 2 cards of this type, and I will get an element of my choice in this quadrant here in the delta. Also, hooray, when I place one of these upgrades next to my board, I take the corresponding little cap, I don't know how else to call it, and I place it in the corresponding sector right there, which means now I have a bonus when I activate that one. So probably you will want to have some of these out as early on as possible, because it's very nice, then you can keep collecting. So we moving our elements, very nice, because we can move life, and we can move elements from one side to the other. And the nice thing about moving, suppose I have some carbon here, is that they leapfrog. So I could move this one here by one spot, but here I can keep moving for as long as I don't reach an empty spot, and so I can move them quite far after a while. So the general idea may feel confusing, but and there's a lot going on, sure, but not too much, because you move your marbles on the central area that I showed you earlier. You collect resources, which can be collecting cards, marking upgrades there, collecting some of these tokens that you can place next to your board, and then you use your stuff. Then you start, buying cards, discarding cards, activating effects, turning things nova, turning life, moving things. Then after I move things, maybe I add some life, and maybe I complete a galaxy, because then you can spend your resources any way you want during your turn. And that's the general idea. When everybody's done taking a round, we evaluate the universal, no pun intended, universal objective, meaning there are objectives that will apply to everybody. One such card will come out every round, pushing down the other cards. And when a card reaches that slot, we evaluate, and so the person with the most oxygen stars, for example, in this case, will score 6 points, and the second player will score 3 points. This is the other trigger for the end of the game. When this deck is exhausted, we end the game. So either time tokens are exhausted, or the last card from that deck is scored. At that point, you play with the highest score wins the game. You have some final scoring based on the values of these tokens here that were hidden, but most of the scoring will be done by then. And the player with the highest score wins the game, of course. Production for this game is great. Everything looks great. Those plastic shiny components really look nice, both in the initial display in the center middle of the table, and then as you create your own patterns of colors, it looks really nice. One thing though about storage, there's just no way that I've seen in which you can put everything back in the box. It would be nice so if everything goes back in the box, and then I just put the display, the center display as I showed you there, without just, and then stays like flush with the lid. I opened the box and I'm ready to play. Couldn't do that. I had to bag everything. I had to take down these nice standees that are used to make the cards more visible. And even then, as you can see, things are kind of like sticking out a little bit. I mean, it doesn't close fully, which simply means it's gonna take longer to get started to set it up than I think one could. Gameplay is really nice, is really strong. I love the decision process that you have as you're trying to collect the right resources. You're playing this mini pseudo mandala in the middle of the table, and I want a lot of cards, so I want a lot of this, so I want a lot of that. Can I manipulate so I can get a certain action with my main marble? A lot of nice, interesting decisions. After you collect your resources, well, you start spending them in absolutely any order that you want. First, I'll move a certain element, then I can score that galaxy, then I can turn that into, nope, let me flip some life, then I can add more life, remove the unnecessary life, the basic life. Then I'm going to move some more elements, the ones I just used. Now I'm going to move them to another area. I'm going to turn one of them into nova, and that allows me to complete that galaxy. Really fun little puzzle. With a lot of flexibility, a lot of enjoyable decision making. Because of this, of course, each player will want to take their sweet time. And the rulebook already says that once a player has collected their elements, the next player can go. And you probably need to do that if downtime is not gonna to completely kill the experience. I play with 2 players only, and to me this is gonna be a 2-player game, because even that way, and we were using the version where we would both collect resources and everybody would be spending resources at the same time. Even that, there was a little bit of downtime. Not too much, not to the fact that it bothered me. I'll be happy to play this game again with 2 players. And yet, even that, there was the fact that, well, some of those universal objectives, if I'm technically the first player, should I be seeing what Peter does in a certain category, how many stars or elements of a certain type he has? I probably shouldn't, because I should take my turn. Then he has the right to see what I have, and then he can beat me to that certain category. But if you play simultaneously, you don't have quite that. You have to be pretty flexible, that people are not going to peak where they shouldn't. So, I don't know about the downtime, but you can't, I think, have it both ways. That here the fun, the joy really is the almost sandboxy element that you have, is you can spend all of these resources. Heck, I didn't even mention all those upgrades that you get. You should get them early on, so they will give you more stuff in the central area, but then it's just fun to spend card to activate that ability. It all plays into this large engine. Weirdly enough, it almost reminded me of Mage Knight. Mage Knight, the board game, in terms of turns that are so flexible. There are just so many options, and you can combine them in so many different ways until you find the one that is really fun and satisfying. At least here, however, you can play more. There's more overlapping of players playing most of their turns at the same time, which I recommend. Generally speaking, this is a really nice, really strong Eurogames. The theme is epic. Doesn't get any more epic than that. But gameplay is really sweet and nice. Again, with the little caveat of you should try to figure out a way to address the potential for downtime. And this is my assessment of Crafting the Cosmos.